Good afternoon, my friends. My name is Melissa from Melissa's Struggling Walk with Jesus. It is Wednesday, October 15th, about 12:14 in the afternoon. I am here using the Amplified Holy Bible and the Navigator's Bible reading plan to share the Word of God with you. And today I'm going to be reading Joshua chapters 8 and 9. Joshua chapter 8 starts out with the conquest of Ai, and it says, "Now the Lord said to Joshua, 'Do not fear or be dismayed, intimidated. Take all the men of war with you and set out. Go up to Ai. See, I have given the king of Ai, his people, his city, and his land into your hand.'" You shall do the same to Ai and its king as you did to Jericho and its king, except that you shall take only its spoil and its cattle as plunder for yourselves. Set up an ambush for the city behind it on the west side. So Joshua set out with all the people of war to go up against Ai. Then Joshua chose 30,000 valiant men and set them out at night. He commanded them, saying, "Listen closely. You are going to lie in wait and ambush the city from behind it. Do not go very far away from the city, but all of you be ready. Then I and all the people who are with me will approach the city, and when they come out to meet us for battle, as they did the first time, we will run away from them. They will come out after us until we have lured them away from the city, because they will say, 'They are running from us as they did before,' so we will run from them. Then you will emerge from the ambush and take possession of the city, for the Lord your God will hand it over to you. And when you have taken the city, you shall set it on fire. You shall do exactly as the Lord commanded. See, I have commanded you." So Joshua sent them off, and they went to the place for the ambush and stayed hidden between Bethel and Ai, on the west side of Ai. But Joshua spent that night among the people in Gilgal. Now Joshua got up early in the morning and assembled the people, and went up with the elders of Israel before the people to Ai. Then all the fighting men who were with him went up and advanced and arrived in front of the city, and camped on the north side of Ai. Now there was a ravine between them and Ai. And Joshua took about 5,000 men and set them in ambush between Bethel and Ai on the west side of the city. So they stationed the people, all the army, the main encampment that was north of the city, and their rear guard on the west side of the city, and Joshua spent that night in the valley. Now when the king and the people of Ai saw it, the men of the city hurried and got up early, and went out to meet Israel in battle, the king and all his people at the appointed time and place before the desert plain, the Arabah. But he did not know that there was an ambush against him waiting behind the city on the west side. So Joshua and all Israel pretended to be defeated by them, and ran toward the wilderness. Then all the people who were in the city were called together to pursue them, and they pursued Joshua and was lured away from the city. Not a man was left in Ai or Bethel who had not gone out after Israel. So they left the city open and unguarded, and they pursued Israel. Now the Lord said to Joshua, "Reach out with the spear that is in your hand and point it toward Ai, for I will give it into your hand." So Joshua reached out with the spear in his hand and pointed it toward the city. And the men in ambush emerged quickly from their hiding place. And when Joshua stretched out his hand, they ran and entered the city and captured it, and quickly set the city on fire. Verse 20. And when the men of Ai turned back and looked, behold, The smoke of the city was ascending toward the sky, and they had no opportunity to run this way or that way. Then the people who had been running to the wilderness turned back toward the pursuers, where it says, and they had no opportunity. Other literature in the Bible, other versions of the Bible says, it was not in their hands. Verse 21. When Joshua and all Israel saw that the men in ambush had taken the city, and that the smoke of the city was ascending, they turned back and struck down the men of Ai. Then the others came out of the city to confront the men of Ai as they returned, so that they were trapped in the midst of Israel, some on this side and some on that side. And then Israel struck them until none of them survived or escaped. Verse 23. But they took the king of Ai alive and brought him to Joshua. And when Israel had finished killing all the inhabitants of Ai in the field of the wilderness, where they pursued them, and they had all fallen by the edge of the sword until they were destroyed, then all Israel returned to Ai and struck it with the edge of the sword. And all who fell that day, both men and women, were 12,000, all the people of Ai. For Joshua did not withdraw his hand with which he stretched out the spear until he had utterly destroyed all the inhabitants of Ai. Israel took only the livestock and the spoil of that city as plunder for themselves, according to the word of the Lord which he had commanded Joshua. Verse 28. So Joshua burned Ai and made it a rubbish heap forever, a desolation until this day. Where it says rubbish heap, Hebrew, tel. Alright, verse 29. He hanged the body of the king of Ai on a tree, leaving it there until evening. At sunset, Joshua gave a command, and they took the body down from the tree and dumped it at the entrance of the city gate, and piled a great heap of stones over it that stands to this day. And then Joshua built an altar to the Lord, the God of Israel, on Mount Ebal. In verse 29, where it says, hang the body. This was not an execution by hanging. The king was killed beforehand, probably with a sword, and then his body was hung up or impaled to further shame him in the minds of others. Verse 31. Just as Moses, the servant of the Lord, had commanded the sons of Israel, as it is written in the book of the law of Moses, an altar of uncut stones on which no one was wielded an iron tool, and they offered on it burnt offerings to the Lord, and sacrificed peace offerings. And there, in the presence of the sons of Israel, Joshua wrote on the stones a copy of the law of Moses, which Moses had written. All Israel, the stranger as well as the native born among them, with their elders and officers and their judges, stood on either side of the ark before the Levitical priest who carried the ark of the covenant of the Lord. Half of them stood in front of Mount Gerizim, and half of them in front of Mount Ebal, just as Moses, the servant of the Lord, had commanded at first to bless the people of Israel. Then afterward Joshua read all the words of the law, the blessing and the curse, according to all that is written in the book of the law. And there was not a word of all that Moses had commanded which Joshua did not read before the entire assembly of Israel, including the women and the children and the foreigners who were among them. That is all of chapter 8, and now I'm going to move on to chapter 9. This is, and the title is The Guile of the Gibeonites. And it says, Now when all the kings who were beyond the Jordan, in the hill country and in the lowland, at the western edge of the hills of Judea, and all along the coast of the great Mediterranean Sea toward Lebanon, the Hittite, and the Amorite, the Canaanite, the Perizzite, the Hivite, and the Jebusite heard of this army and its victories over Jericho and Ai. Verse 2. They gathered together with one purpose to fight with Joshua and with Israel. Where it says one purpose to fight, other versions of the Bible has one mouth. Verse 3. But when the people of Gibeon, the Hivites, heard what Joshua had done to Jericho and Ai, they too acted craftily and cunningly, and set out and took along provisions, but took worn-out sacks on their donkeys and wineskins, the leather bottles that were worn out and split open and patched together, and worn out and patched sandals on their feet, and worn out clothes, and all their supply of food was dry and had turned to crumbs. They went to Joshua into camp at Gilgal and said to him and the men of Israel, We have come from a far country, so now make a covenant, a treaty with us. But the men of Israel said to the Hivites, Perhaps you are living with our land. How then can we make a covenant or a treaty with you? They said to Joshua, We are your servants. Then Joshua said to them, Who are you, and where do you come from? They said to him, Your servants have come from a country that is very far away because of the fame of the Lord your God. We have heard the news about him and all the remarkable things that he did in Egypt, and everything that he did to the 2 kings of the Amorites, who were beyond the Jordan, to Sihon the king of Heshbon, and to Og the king of Bashan, who lived in Ashtaroth. So our elders and all the residents of our country said to us, Take provisions for the journey and go to meet the sons of Israel and say to them, We are your servants. Now make a covenant, a treaty with us. This bread of ours was hot and fresh when we took it along as our provision from our houses on the day we left to come to you. Now look, it is dry and has turned to crumbs. These wineskins which we filled with new, and look, they are split. Our clothes and our sandals are worn out because of the very long journey that we had to make. So the men of Israel took some of their own provisions and offered them in friendship, and foolishly did not ask for the counsel of the Lord. Joshua made peace with them and made a covenant, a treaty with them, to let them live. And the leaders of the congregation of Israel swore an oath to them. There's a reason we should go to the Lord, people. All right, verse 16. It happened that 3 days after they had made a covenant, a treaty with them, the Israelites heard that they were actually their neighbors and that they were living among them. Then the sons of Israel set out and came to their cities on the 3rd day. Now the cities of the Hivites were Gibeon and Chephirah and Beeroth and Kiriath Jearim. But the sons of Israel did not strike them because the leaders of the congregation had sworn to them by the Lord, the God of Israel, to spare them. And all the congregation murmured, expressing great dissatisfaction against the leaders. But all the leaders said to the whole congregation, We have sworn to them by the Lord, the God of Israel, so now we cannot touch them. This is what we will do to them. We will let them live, so that the wrath of God does not come upon us for violating the oath which we have sworn to them. The leaders said to them, Let them live as our slaves. So they became the cutters and gatherers of firewood and water carriers for the entire congregation, just as the leaders had said to them. And Joshua called the Hivite men and said, Why did you deceive us, saying, We live very far away from you, when in fact you live among us? Now therefore you are cursed, and you shall always be slaves, both cutters and gatherers of firewood and water carriers for the house of my God. They replied to Joshua and said, because your servants were told in no uncertain terms that the Lord your God commanded his servant Moses to give you all the land, and to destroy all the land's inhabitants before you. We feared greatly for our lives because of you, and so we did this deceptive thing. Now look, we are in your hands. Do to us as it seems good and right in your sight. So that is what he did to them. He rescued them from the hands of the Israelites, and they did not kill them. Now on that day Joshua made them cutters and gatherers of firewood and water carriers for the congregation and for the altar of the Lord, to this day, in the place which he would choose. All right, that is all of Joshua chapters 8 and 9, my friends.